In the meantime, the Southern and Middle Belt Leadership Forum has joined other citizens and groups calling for the retention of Clause 60 of the 2026 Electoral Amendment Bill, which mandates real-time electronic transmission of election results. The clause was passed by the House of Representatives and harmonized by the Joint Conference Committee of the National Assembly. The forum made the statement in a press release signed by 4 of its top leaders and shared with News Central. According to the SMBLF, free, fair, and transparent elections are the cornerstone of democracy, and any attempt to weaken them is a direct attack on the sovereignty of the Nigerian people. I'm being joined in the studio by Senator Abba Moro, a former minister of the Federal Republic, but now minority leader in the Nigerian Senate. Thank you for joining us, Senator.
Thank you very much for joining me.
This whole, well, for want of a better word, brouhaha, is it necessary?
Thank you very much. I think it's not necessary, quite frankly. And I think that it's part of the whole process, the beauty of democracy, that yes, certain decisions have been taken. Certain perceptions have been built into them. And of course, like they say, perceptions sometimes are a reality. Granted, but not conceding that this is where we. But dynamics of legislation is a process. And so the first phase was what the House of Representatives has approved, a similar approval by the Senate that hasn't gone down well with majority of Nigerians or some Nigerians. But the final process is the conference committee report, which will capture the essence of the bill.
Okay, but then the question one would ask is why? Because initially, after the committee had done what it had to do, the Senate sat down clause by clause and agreed on all of this. I understand there was even an agreement during the committee's meeting in Lagos retreat. And then you come into plenary, and some members of the Senate decided that let's go back to things as they were before. Is it some would say, is it a gimmick trying to elongate the process instead of quickly passing this so that it can get to work?
No. I don't think it was a gimmick. It is still part of the process. Public hearings were undertaken in Lagos and some other parts of Nigeria. Views were collated. Reports were written. The final reports brought to the Senate. And the Senate says, look, because of the objections surrounding certain provisions of the recommendations that have been made by the committee, let's retain the provisions of the 2022 Amendment Act. Fine. But that is not a finality. The final product would have come out of, now that the Senate has said, let's go back to 2022, and the House of Representatives has adopted recommendations that has far-reaching consequences on the amendment process. Members of the conference committee would now meet and agree, is it the version of the Senate that we adopt or the version of the House of Representatives adopt as a final document? That is when the final process would have been accomplished. In which case, the Senate will meet again, the House will meet again, and agree to adopt the recommendations of the conference committee, which would have been the final paper, which would have been, honestly, if you ask me, which would have been the stage at where we begin to object or accept.
So this, as you said, the brouhaha wasn't there. But right now, this whole matter has led Nigerians to a point. I mean, you've heard some of them, Nigerians saying that they are disappointed, and some Nigerians saying that the Senate appears to be standing on a shaky mandate they don't know. How do you react to this?
Well, but that is true. That is true, because the number of Nigerians that have come out today, yesterday, are now saying, look, we are disappointed in your actions. If I show you some of the correspondences that I've received from Nigerians, even in the United States of America, some even bordering on curse, you will be surprised that we have come this way. But the beauty of democracy, like I said in the afternoon, is the fact that we have a leadership in the National Assembly, in the Senate, for instance, that have said, hey, let's go back. We were on recess. We had to come back. I said, look, Nigerians are agitated about certain actions that we have taken. Let's go back and review what we have done. And let's find the areas that we have disappointed Nigerians, as they say, and see how we can amend the situation. That is exactly what has happened today. That the Senate reconvened, reviewed the actions that has prompted the agitation by Nigerians, and say, hey, how do we gain back the confidence of the Nigerian people? That is pragmatic leadership. And quite frankly, I commended the leadership of the Senate today because it's very rare. It's very rare in Nigeria for a leader or a president or a governor to take a decision and go back on that decision and say, hey, I was wrong after all. I think what the Senate has done today is to say that we were wrong after all.
I'm just trying to hold myself from clapping for this, which you have said is a good thing, because there's some other reason. There's another question I want to ask you, but we'll do that when we come back from this break. Do stay with us. Have yours. Welcome back. We see our Senator Abba Moro, Minority Leader of the Nigerian Senate, here with us. Senator Moro, before we went on that break, you were saying something about the Senate revising itself is something commendable, but that's a waste of taxpayers' money. Because if indeed the Senate did not go back on what they had agreed on initially, you wouldn't have had to revise yourself. So the question then will be, and Nigerians are still asking this question, why did the Senate appear to disagree with what it had agreed with before? This House of Representatives had passed this electronic transmission real time. The Senate came out and said, no, let's retain what was, and now has revised itself, only to still leave out the real-time transmission, the real-time phrase. Why?
Well, again, you must understand that in a democracy, there is bound to be agreements and disagreements. There is bound to be some level of interpretations and misinterpretations. In the first place, I want to think that what has led us to this impasse, leading to agitations and the rest of them, is maybe lack of effective communication. But be that as it may, like I said, we pass a form in the Senate of the act because we were unable to agree on a common front. A motion was raised to retain the old order, even aware that the House of Representatives had earlier passed a version that is different from the old order. But like I said, I think that it's an improvement on Nigeria's governance process that the Senate has had to reverse itself, knowing fully well that majority of Nigerians or some Nigerians did not want the version of the Electoral Act that was filed by the Senate. It rarely happens in Nigeria. They stick to it, whether it is good or it is bad. But the Senate has said, hey, we represent Nigerians. And if Nigerians do not want the aspect of this act that we are trying to pass for them, then let's meet the Nigerians in their own way. And so the Senate now reverses itself to say, let's do it this way, that some Nigerians want. Real time, yes. That is part of what some Nigerians want. But in the wisdom of the Senate.
But, Senator, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're saying that is part of what some Nigerians want, but you saw the amount of Nigerians out there screaming for real time.
No, but you are not suggesting, to be honest with you, you are not suggesting that those people who are shouting real time represent 90% or 100% of Nigerians? No. Because we are also Nigerians. The people in the Senate, not all of us, accepted this aspect of no real time or real time.
But Senator Moro, you are of the opposition.
Yes.
What is your stand of the opposition? Because it looks as if you're supposed to be opposing whatever it is the ruling party wants. But it looks as if you're playing on the same page.
I think, again, that is the erroneous impression that is put out there. I'm not supposed to be opposing everything that the ruling party wants, because the ruling party is not all bad. The ruling party also has aspects. They are also Nigerians.
Let me ask
my take on this matter,
yes,
and I have stated it before, that as long as we are making the laws for these Nigerians, as much as it is practicable, we must do that Nigerians want. And if you ask me, as a senator representing the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District, and a participant in the electoral process, an active one for that matter, I would go for electronic transmission of election results real time.
You also know that Nigerians want transparency.
Yeah, of course, yes.
So what's the guarantee Nigerians will get transparency?
But let me also tell you that electronic transmission of election result real time is not the only factor that guarantees transparency. Don't forget that election is a process. You start from accreditation. You can get it wrong from there. Then you go to voting. Now you go to counting. You go to collation. You go to announcement. Before you even come down to transmission.
But Senator Abba Moro, that is a very key part of the process.
Of course.
Exactly.
I agree with you.
You also know that the other recommendations that had been made after the 2023 elections include even electronic voting. They also include all manner of things that will reduce, according to our next recommendation, reduce the human element that could lead to failures and all of that.
Right.
So why were all those things jettisoned?
Well, it's not everything there is jettisoned.
And we do know, and Nigerians have even complained, yes, Senate saying that 9 states do not have network. Yet, in Nigeria, there is no community without a POS.
Do you want my answer to that? Of course, when they say Senate, it becomes Senate of everybody.
Yes.
But don't forget that it is not everything that is turned out there as a Senate decision that got the approval of all senators. For instance, you're telling me now that there is no network in 9 states. What is wrong with it? Why can't you provide network? All we require to do, we have service providers here and the rest of them. Whose responsibility is it? Can we be going in, year out, complaining of inadequacy of network? Where are the providers? What efforts have we made to make them provide the network that we require to conduct an election that we require? And if you say there is no electricity in some parts of the country to generate enough power to power our system and the rest of that, and I tell you, is that difficult for INEC to make proposal for the purchase of some level of solar power for every polling unit in this country? Just 190-something thousand. Is it impossible? No.
It is not.
Is it impossible to purchase I Pass My Neighbor for every polling unit in this country? How many hours is election? So these are questions that we must ask ourselves, because we must seriously address these issues that we complained about in 2023, that we have not done anything about until 2026, and then we are going to 2027. These same questions are arising again. So if we leave it in 2031, we are still going to be having the same questions.
Senator Abba Moro, I hope you will make our time to come back again, because we need to continue this conversation. But I want to thank you for coming in today.
I'm available.
Senator Abba Moro is a minority leader in the Nigerian Senate. Thank you for coming in this evening.
Thank you very much.